Good evening, friends. Thanks for hanging out with us for another video here on the Fantasy Fellowship channel. It is Monday, December 3rd. It's about 3:30 my time here. We're going to be just going over the box scores, and we're going to look at the snap counts, all the action from Week 14 games. We have a Monday night game tonight, the Rams at the Cardinals. The Rams just ruled out Jalen Ramsey and Tyler Higbee, so the Rams are going to be a little shorthanded there. Probably going to like the Cardinals in this one. But what I'm going to do, if you're new to the Fantasy Fellowship, you should definitely subscribe. Check out some of our other videos. We post a lot of content for you guys and do a handful of live streams each week. But Monday, this is the day where I put out my box scores and my snap counts review. We just go to Pro Football Reference, and we just take a peek at each game, and we'll go through the box scores and just look at all the numbers that might interest us going forward. So starting with the Thursday night football game, the Steelers, the Vikings. Really interesting game. It was a tale of two halves. Pittsburgh was shut out in the first half, but made this crazy fourth quarter run to make it interesting. Vikings take the game 36-28. Vikings now at 6-7. Steelers fall to 6-1. We're going to start with the box score in this one. And both really condensed box scores. You see they're not using a lot of players in each column here. But Ben Roethlisberger, decent game. Again, if you looked at the box score, you'd be like, oh, this was a good game. But that first half was abysmal. 28 of 40, 308 passing yards, 3 touchdowns, 1 interception. He was sacked 5 times. That was probably the biggest issue of the first half for sure. Naji Harris, he got the volume here, 20 attempts, 94 rushing yards, and 1 score. He also caught 3 of his targets for 10 yards and another score. So 2 touchdowns for Naji here. Deontay Johnson did get a 7-yard carry. He also paced the team with 10 targets. He caught 5 of them for 76 yards. So you'll take that in a PPR league. Chase Claypool, we'll get into him later, but 1 attempt for 2 rushing yards, 9 targets, and he caught 8 for 93, so he ended up with a nice PPR stat line as well. James Washington, 6 targets, 4 for 65, and a touchdown. And Pat Freiermuth, it was a low volume day, only 3 targets, but 2 for 32, and he gets the touchdown, so you'll take that. And then Ray McCloud racked up a lot of targets here with 8 total targets, 6 receptions for 32 yards. Benny Snell just 1 carry for -2 yards. So a pretty good box score. Everybody that you started for Pittsburgh side came out for you. And then on the Viking side, Dalvin Cook was the surprise active in this one, and he just ran away with this game. Kirk Cousins, a little bit disappointing, though. 14 of 31, 216 yards, 2 touchdowns, 2 interceptions, no sacks on the night, but he also added 14 rushing yards. So not a great completion percentage. He did throw the 2 interceptions, 1 crucial, fourth quarter to keep the Steelers in it. So not his best game, but Dalvin Cook, this probably was his best game. 27 rushing attempts, 205 yards, 2 rushing touchdowns. He also caught a 17-yard pass on 3 targets. Alexander Mattison, everybody was hoping he would be the guy in this one. He goes 6 for 27, 1 target, no catches. KJ Osborne, 9 targets, 3 for 83, and a touchdown. Good game from him if you started it. Tyler Conklin, disappointing, 2 targets, 2 catches, 20 yards. Chris Herndon, 1 for 17. And then Justin Jefferson, he had 15 targets in this game, almost 50% of the target share. He catches 7 for 79 and a score. He probably could have had 2, maybe 3 touchdowns in this one. So you'll take this. This is a bad box score for Justin Jefferson, and especially with no Adam Thielen getting 15 targets. I could see another big game for him in the coming week. But let's go take a peek at these snap counts. I don't really think this matters too much because both teams are really condensed. We know who their starters are. But if you're new to the Fantasy Fellowship and how I do this, I just read wide receivers, running backs, and tight ends. I'm just reading out their percent snap share. So Deontay Johnson led the way for the Steelers with 97%. The other second receiver was Ray McCloud at 85%. Chase Claypool was benched. In the middle of this game, he only got 59%. James Washington played 41%. Steelers only used 4 wideouts. Naji Harris dominated the running back snaps for 96% of the game, and Benny Snell got in there for 4%. And then the tight ends, Pat Freiermuth here played 74%, Zach Gentry, the backup, 35%, and then Kevin Rader down here with just 1%. So nothing's, both the Steelers and the Vikings, like we know who they're going to use. There's really no tricks or questions. Like their box scores are really condensed. On the Viking side, you see Justin Jefferson, 96%. KJ Osborne, 86%. I think if no Adam Thielen, KJ Osborne does have some use for us next week as well. Third wide receiver was D.D. Westbrook at 41%. Amir Smith-Marset and Dan Chisena got some garbage numbers down here. Dalvin Cook, 77%. So not even a limited, snap count game. This is a really good game from him, 77%. And then Alexander Mattison piled in 19%. As far as tight ends go, you see Tyler Conklin did play 70% of the snaps. He just didn't get the targets his way. Luke Stocker and Chris Herndon picked up some other snaps as well. So Steelers, Vikings, again, Vikings take that one in kind of exciting fashion in the fourth quarter there. Let's move on to the Atlanta Falcons and the Carolina Panthers. Atlanta stays in the playoff hunt in the NFC. They move to 6-7. Carolina kind of just swirling down the toilet here. They're 5-8. Falcons win 29-21. Let's take a look at these box score numbers here. Matt Ryan, efficient day, 19 of 28, 190 yards, 1 touchdown, nothing flashy for fantasy. I don't think we should be using Matt Ryan in 1 QB league, so nothing to worry about there. I guess he does have some super flex appeal, but Cordero Patterson, man, 16 rushing attempts, 58 yards and a score. He did see 5 targets, but only caught 2 of them for 1 yard. So it could have been a bigger day here if you got a little bit better receiving numbers. Mike Davis looks like he's back in the mix here as a potential running back 2 flex. 11 carries for 44 yards. He also had 6 targets and caught 5 for 42. So in a PPR league, that's an easy 13-some points. Quadre Ollison got into the game here, 5 attempts for 23 yards. He did lose a fumble though, so his moment might kind of go back into the back pocket there. Russell Gage had a nice consistent day, 6 targets, 4 for 64. You'll take that in a PPR league if you whipped him out there. Kyle Pitts, a little bit better today, 6 targets, 5 for 61. So if you started him at tight end 1, you got your 11.1 points. You should be fine with that. Lee Smith, Tajay Sharp, Hayden Hurst, just kind of nothing. But Hayden Hurst did catch the 1 touchdown on the day here from Matt Ryan for 3 yards. And then the Panthers, I don't even know where to start. They were back and forth between Newton and P.J. Walker throughout this game. Cam Newton finished 15 of 23 for 178 yards. He did throw an interception, but he added 47 rushing yards and a score. He also lost a fumble in this one, so it was just kind of sloppy from the get-go. P.J. Walker in his relief, 6 of 12 for 75 yards and a touchdown. He also threw an interception as well. Chuba Hubbard led the team in carries. This was kind of predictable, 10 for 33, and he gets a rushing touchdown, long of 17. So you take away that rushing touchdown, and I'm not really feeling good about that. I don't know if I could recommend Chuba Hubbard going forward as a running back too. Amir Abdullah did get the secondary work here, 4 for 16 as a rusher, but he was the running back on third downs being targeted here with 4 targets, 2 for 17. So if they're playing in games where they're in catch-up mode coming from behind, Amir Abdullah is going to have some PPR interest. Robbie Anderson led the day in targets with 12. He goes 7 for 84 and a touchdown, his best game of the season here. DJ Moore, just a typical DJ Moore day, 10 targets, 6 for 84. You'll take that in a PPR league. Brandon Zylstra, the clear wide receiver 3 here, 4 for 45. And Tommy Tremble, 2 for 23. Ian Thomas still not doing much in the box score. Let's take a peek at these snap counts now. For the Carolina Panthers, you see Robbie Anderson led the day with 97%, DJ Moore 89% of the snaps, and then Brandon Zylstra, again, kind of the number 3 guy here, 56% of the targets. Terrace Marshall Jr. was on the field for 47% of the plays, but he didn't even get a target in this one, so that's kind of frustrating. As far as running backs go, Amir Abdullah actually outsnapped Chuba Hubbard here with 59% of the snaps, and Chuba gets 39%. So I actually think Amir Abdullah might be the better Carolina back to own going forward, even though I don't really know how valuable that position is. And then the tight ends, Ian Thomas, 55%, Tommy Tremble, 53%. We're just going to stay away from there. As far as Carolina goes, I really only care about DJ Moore at this point. I suppose Robbie Anderson could have some value going forward, but again, it's hard to trust what he's been doing lately. And then I will shout out Cam Newton did play 75% of this game. PJ Walker did get 25% of this game. The Falcons, Tajay Sharp and Russell Gage both led the way for the receivers with 75% of the snaps. You see Olamide Zaccheaus at 42%, and then the only other receiver was Christian Blake down here. Tight ends, Hayden Hurst actually led the team in snaps with tight end snaps at 62%. Kyle Pitts played 54%, and then the third guy, Lee Smith, getting 49%. For running back snaps, Mike Davis led the way, 57 total percent of the snaps there. Cordero Patterson, 49%, and the third string running back, Quadre Ollison, just 9%. So interesting. They're still using Mike Davis quite a bit here. He might be a guy that's getting a little bit more interesting as a low-end running back to flex. But Cordero Patterson, man, continues to get the usage. Would like to see more production in the receiving game, but it kind of seems like that flip-flops almost every other week at this point. So Atlanta, I think they're heading to San Francisco next week to see if they can, both San Fran and Atlanta are 6-7, I believe, in fighting for this playoff. So it's going to be kind of fun. San Fran's actually 7-6. But we'll move on here to a more exciting game. The Bengals hosted the 49ers. They fall 23-26. Both teams sitting at 7-6 now. And this was a fun one. This one went to OT. Cincinnati had that awesome fourth quarter rally, but just fell short in overtime there. They couldn't punch in a touchdown. Looking at the 49ers, Jimmy Garoppolo played really well, 27 of 41, 296 passing yards and 2 touchdowns. He was sacked 5 times, but the good news is he didn't turn the ball over in this one, and that might have been the difference. 3 rushing yards on the day. Jeff Wilson led the team in carries, 13 for 56, no targets. Deebo Samuel, 8 carries, 37 yards, and a rushing touchdown. He only had 1 target in the passing game, though, for 1 catch for 22 yards. So that's kind of concerning to me. I appreciate the rushing upside, but I want Deebo catching a lot more than just 1 pass per game. Brandon Ayuk played pretty well in this one, 1 carry for 4 yards. He had 11 targets on the day and caught 6 for 62 and a touchdown. So he's entering our wide receiver 3 flex territory. George Kittle, though, this was all about George Kittle. 15 targets on the day. He catches 13 of them for 151 yards and a score. So if you had George Kittle in your lineup this week, you probably won. Jawan Jennings, 5 targets, 3 for 46. Jermichael Hasty catches all 3 of his targets for 10 yards, but no attempts on the ground. And then Juszczyk here, just 1 for 5. Looking at the Bengals, Joe Burrow played pretty well too, 25 of 34, 348 yards and 2 passing touchdowns. He didn't turn the ball over either, but again, he was sacked 5 times as well. So both QBs sacked 5 times, and then they both ran for 3 yards. So interesting there. Joe Mixon, probably one of the worst games of his season, 18 carries for 58 yards. He only caught 2 of his 2 targets for 10 yards. So a pretty pedestrian day in PPR leagues, but I think you just got to chalk that up as a floor game and go from there. Samaji Perein looked good on his few touches, 4 for 11 as a rusher, but 5 targets, 4 for 22 as a receiver. So he's an interesting guy. I think he's a handcuff that needs to be rostered, especially if you are the Mixon owner. Samaji Perein should probably be on your bench. Tyler Boyd had an 8-yard carry. He also had 5 targets. He caught 4 of them for 55 yards. Jamar Chase, big day for Chase, 1 attempt for 6 yards on the ground. He led the team with 8 targets on the day, and he caught 5 for 77 and 2 really awesome touchdowns. He probably could have had a third. They ruled it incomplete, but they called it a touchdown initially. T. Higgins, 7 targets, 5 for 114 yards. He's been over 100 receiving yards in 3 straight games now, so he's heating up. CJ Uzomah even had a good day, 6 targets, 4 for 56. Drew Sample, 1 for 14. So your main Bengals trio of receivers, they all kind of had their days, and then Joe Mixon, I guess, had enough. But Joe Burrow, satisfying a handful of fantasy players for us. Let's go take a look at these snap counts. For Cincy, Jamar Chase led the receivers at 97%. Tyler Boyd here at 85%. T. Higgins, 75% for him. Down here, you have a couple backup receivers. Stanley Morgan Jr. at 19%. Mike Thomas at 7%. Looking at the tight ends, this was all Uzomah, 87% here. Drew Sample got 27%. And then the running backs. Joe Mixon played 60% of this game. Samaji Perein got 42%. They were the only 2 running backs for the Cincinnati Bengals. And then on the San Fran side here, George Kittle played 96% of this game. Brandon Ayuk, 94% to lead the receivers. Deebo Samuel, number 2 receiver here at 77%. I think they're just kind of easing him back in. I expect more from him going forward. And then Jawan Jennings has kind of entrenched himself as the number 3 receiver here at 66%. Jeff Wilson leading the way, 59% for the running backs. Jermichael Hasty did get 20%. Those are the only 2 running backs that played. I guess Juszczyk, 44%. He's just always kind of on the field hanging around. And then some backups here. Trent Sherfield, Travis Benjamin, kind of just nothing really to note there. But San Fran and the Cincinnati Bengals, this was a fun game. San Fran was just able to punch that touchdown in to steal the victory in overtime. Let's move on to Baltimore and Cleveland. This one got kind of fun at the end. Cleveland wins 24-22. Browns move to 7-6. The Ravens fall to 8-5, and some injuries in this one. Baltimore Ravens, one of the more injured teams in the league at the moment, and they just lost Lamar Jackson. We don't know how long for, but he's got an ankle injury. It might not even be for a game, but he's got an ankle injury that we're going to have to monitor throughout the rest of the week. Lamar was only able to play a little bit here. He went 4-4 as a passer for 17 yards. He was sacked once, added 5 yards on the ground. So it sucks if you started Lamar and you need to get into the playoffs. You probably did not get what you needed here. So Tyler Huntley came in, and Tyler Huntley actually played pretty well. 27 of 38 as a passer, 270 yards and 1 touchdown. He was sacked 3 times, but he did lose 2 fumbles. Those are 2 costly fumbles. He also put on 45 yards on the ground Devonta Freeman led the team in rushing, 13 attempts for 64 yards. He also caught all 5 of his targets for 8 yards. So on a PPR day, you're happy enough there. Devin Duvernay, 1 carry for 3 yards, 5 targets, 2 for 14, kind of whatever. Latavius Murray, 1 carry, 1 yard, 1 touchdown. So that's all he had on his slate today. But this was Mark Andrews. When Tyler Huntley came in, he was peppering Mark Andrews early and often. 11 targets, 11 receptions for 115 yards and a score. Just a huge day from Mark. Rashad Bateman had himself a pretty good day too. 8 targets, 7 for 103. Marquis Brown, he's getting the targets, but just not really anything deep going here. 8 targets, 5 for 41, so it's a 9-point floor in a PPR league. But Huntley struggled. He was taking some deep shots to Marquise, but he just couldn't hit him. So it's there. Marquise is getting open deep, but Huntley just struggled to find him on a couple throws that I saw there. Josh Oliver, Sammy Watkins, kind of whatever at this point. But the Browns, Baker Mayfield, 22 of 32, 190 yards, 2 touchdowns, 1 interception, no sacks on the day. That's a pretty good win. And then 14 yards as a rusher. Nick Chubb led the way for the carries, 17 total rushing attempts for 59 yards. He also caught 3 targets for 6 yards. He had 4 total targets in that one. So a Nick Chubb floor game. We'll see what happens here. We did see Kareem Hunt. We lost Kareem Hunt. I think it was an ankle injury. I can't recall what it was. But we're expecting Kareem Hunt to miss at least a game or 2. So Dearness Johnson came in relief, 4 for 22 as a rusher, 1 for 7 as a receiver. Again, the Kareem Hunt line, 2 for 5, 2 for 13 as a receiver. So sorry if you started Kareem Hunt. He left early. But Donovan Peoples-Jones was probably one of the best receivers for the Browns in this one. 7 targets, 5 for 90. Just Baker Mayfield has a really good deep connection with him. And Donovan Peoples-Jones just puts big chunk plays together for the Browns and gets them into good positions. Jarvis Landry led the way in targets with 8. He caught 5 for 41 and a touchdown. Austin Hooper, nice day, 7 targets, 5 for 30 and a score. And then Andy Janovich, kind of whatever. But let's go take a peek at these box score, these snap counts here. With Austin Hooper, he did play 100% of the snaps, but keep in mind, no David Njoku in this one and no Harrison Bryant. So if we see no Njoku or Bryant again next week, Austin Hooper's looking like a fine streaming tight end option for you. Baker Mayfield, he left briefly. He played 97% of the snaps here, but he was able to come back in just fine. Donovan Peoples-Jones led the receivers here at 92% of the snaps. Jarvis Landry played 83%. And then Rashard Higgins played 37%, but he's not really being used. And then JoJo Natson down here. But Nick Chubb, again, with no Kareem Hunt, he sees 66% of the snaps. Dearness Johnson got 22%. Kareem Hunt did get 20% before exiting. And then looking at the Ravens real quick, Marquise Brown led the team in snaps with 95%. Second receiver was Devin Duvernay at 66%, who I've noticed lately has been getting more run. I don't know if we care about him for fantasy, but he has been on the field a lot. Rashad Bateman, wide receiver 3 with 65%. And then Sammy Watkins, he's officially been hopped by Duvernay and Bateman. Watkins is playing 31% of the snaps here. James Proche getting some run too at 28%. The running backs, Devonta Freeman, 66% for him. Latavius Murray did get 27% of the snaps, but again, he only had the ball 1 time in this game. And then Mark Andrews, 88%, backup tight end Eric Tomlinson, 19%, Josh Oliver, 12%. So this was a fun game. Ravens just came up short. We're going to be monitoring the injuries to Lamar and Kareem Hunt as well. But some big games for these teams next week. I know the Ravens host Green Bay. I can't remember who the Cleveland Browns play, but I'm sure it's going to be a fun, tough game as Cleveland can all of a sudden kind of see a little tunnel of hope to the playoffs here with that big win over their division rival. We'll kind of be quick about this one. The Broncos and the Lions. Broncos trash them 38-10. Broncos move to 7-6 and stay in that playoff hunt. Lions fall to 1-11-1. The box scores in this one. We'll look at the Broncos. Teddy B played well, 18 of 25, 179 yards and 2 touchdowns. No turnovers for Teddy. No rushing yards either. Melvin Gordon dominated the touches actually. 24 total rushing attempts, 111 yards, 2 touchdowns. So that extra week off did him well. Javonte Williams still looks amazing. 15 for 73, 1 rushing touchdown. Then he also caught a 10-yard touchdown. So 2 TDs for both running backs in this one. And then the receivers, man, I really don't know what part of the Broncos receiving group I want to use. I think for fantasy, it's Melvin Gordon and Javonte need to be in your lineups. But after that, not really sure we can be starting these Broncos receivers. Noah Fant, 4 for 51. I believe he got hurt. We'll have to check up on him. Jerry Jeudy, 6 targets, 5 for 47. Albert Okwuegbunam, he caught all 5 of his targets for 41 yards and a touchdown. Tim Patrick, 2 for 21. Cortland Sutton, only 2 targets, 1 for 9. So, I mean, at this point, Jerry Jeudy's a low-end PPR play for wide receiver 3 flex consideration. We have to monitor this Noah Fant situation because Albert O did look good. So we'll see here. The Lions side, Jared Goff played decently, 24 of 39, 215 yards and a touchdown. He did throw an interception, added 10 yards on the ground. And the biggest development in this one was Craig Reynolds, running back Craig Reynolds, 11 carries for 83 yards to lead the way, 2 for 16 as a receiver. A lot of people were asking me Godwin Igwebuike questions or Jamar Jefferson. I tried to do my best here. Igwebuike, though, only 8 carries for 25 yards. He did lose a fumble, so not a great performance from him. Amon-Ra St. Brown, though, team high 12 targets. The next best had 6. So Jared Goff really slinging it to Amon-Ra St. Brown. He goes 8 for 73. So his slot presence is kind of a poor man's Cooper Kupp right now. I like Amon-Ra St. Brown. Josh Reynolds continues to be a deep threat for Jared Goff, 3 for 52. Khalif Raymond catches a touchdown, 4 for 31. And then I don't really even want to mess with some of these other guys here. Looking at the snap counts for Denver real quick. Teddy Bridgewater played the full game. Cortland Sutton led the team in receiver snaps, 87% for him. Tim Patrick was at 76%. Jerry Jeudy did get 60%. Kendall Hinton, Deontay Spencer got some snaps down here. Noah Fant led the tight ends at 74%. Albert O did get 56%. And then the running back share, basically down the middle, Melvin Gordon, 50%, Javonte Williams, 49%. On the Rams side, or the Lions side real quick, I mean, Amon-Ra St. Brown's interesting to note. He did play 75%. Josh Reynolds did play 70% as well. Those guys are interesting as, Detroit Lion receivers that you could hold on your bench and maybe use. And then the running back situation, Craig Reynolds, 46% to Igwebuike's 44%. It sounds like Craig Reynolds is going to get more play going forward. So we'll talk about him on the waiver wire show tomorrow night. And then the tight ends, I really don't care with no TJ Hawkinson. It's a mess. It's a mess for the Detroit Lions. Hopefully they can get Swift and or Hawkinson back next week. This is our Sunday night football game. The Green Bay Packers hosted the Chicago Bears. Green Bay wins 45-30. They improved to 10-3. Chicago falls to 4-9. This was a fun game. The second quarter was wild as both teams put up 3 touchdowns, and then the Packers were able to just kind of manhandle them in the second half. But let's look at these box scores real quick. Justin Fields, 18 of 33, 224 yards passing, 2 touchdowns, 2 interceptions. He also lost a fumble in this one, so 3 total turnovers, and then 74 yards on the ground. So take away the turnovers, he had a pretty nice fantasy stat line for you. David Montgomery, 10 carries for 42 yards. He did catch 6 passes for 39 yards. He had 7 targets, a team high 7 targets. Damien Williams was the main backup in this one, 2 for 13 as a runner, 1 for 4 as a receiver. Jakeem Grant making some plays for them in the receiving game and special teams. He had 1 for 5 on the ground, but he caught 1 46-yard touchdown in this one on 3 targets. Khalil Herbert did get a 3-yard carry. But then Demir Bird kind of came out of nowhere too. 2 targets, 2 receptions, 76-yard and a touchdown. And then after that, it was pretty ugly. Darnell Mooney, the honeymoon is over. 5 targets, 1 for 19. Cole Kmet, 5 targets, 3 for 17. Allen Robinson, 6 targets, but only 2 for 14. And then Jimmy Graham, 2 catches for 9 yards. So at this point, I really only think David Montgomery might be the only piece that I would want to use as a running back too in my leagues. Maybe Justin Fields can be a streamer for a little bit here, but it just doesn't look good for this Bears offense. Again, they put up 30 points here, and Jakeem Grant and Demir Bird are getting the touchdown. So I don't know, guys. Darnell Mooney, Allen Robinson, Cole Kmet. Don't know if I can trust them. Just stick with Monty. And then we get to the Packers. Aaron Rodgers had a game. 29 of 37 as a passer, 341 passing yards, 4 touchdowns, no turnovers. He was sacked 3 times, but just a massive, nasty fantasy line for you. A.J. Dillon, this is interesting. A.J. Dillon, 15 rushing attempts for 71 yards, 0 targets. Aaron Jones, only 5 rushing attempts for 35 yards and 1 touchdown. 3 targets, 3 catches, 30 yards, and a touchdown. So he does get the 2 touchdowns, but he only gets 8 touches on the entire game, whereas A.J. Dillon gets 15. So that's kind of a concern for me. But as long as Aaron Jones is being used as the passing down back, and getting the touchdowns, I think we're going to be just fine. Allen Lazard played a really good game. He had a 14-yard carry. He also had 7 targets. He caught 6 for 75 yards and a score here. Devontae Adams just had a slop game, 13 targets, 10 for 121 and 2 receiving touchdowns. Mercedes Lewis even got in on the fun, 4 for 51. Josiah DeGuara, 3 for 44. So this tight end output, I mean, you got 7 catches by your tight end for that looks like 95 yards. So huge day from the tight ends. MVS, quiet day. He did get 5 targets, 3 for 20. And he did get targeted in the end zone. He just couldn't come down with it. So it could have been a bigger day for Marquez. And then Kirk Benkert getting in the kneel down snaps at the end of the game. The snap counts here. Devontae Adams led the way, 89%. Allen Lazard, 82% as the wide receiver 2. MVS did get 66%. So going forward, just how good this Packers offense is going, I think Lazard and MVS need to be a part of your fantasy benches, at least for now. Maybe you start them if you need to. But with Randall Cobb out of the picture, like those are the receivers. Like Amari Rodgers got 15%. So it's going to be this trio heavily going forward. Josiah DeGuara played 57% of the snaps to Mercedes Lewis's 55. A.J. Dillon led the team in running back snaps with 54% to Aaron Jones's 45%. So I still don't know if they're just being cautious with Aaron Jones and limiting his touches and whatnot here, but it's interesting to see A.J. Dillon getting the majority of the work and the snaps. The Bears, Darnell Mooney did play 92% to lead the receivers. Allen Robinson got 77%, so it looks like he's back from that hamstring just fine. And then Damiere Byrd, 58%. Jakeem Grant, 47% here. Cole Kmet dominated the tight end snaps as usual with 74%. Jesse James actually got more than Jimmy Graham. Jesse James got 24%, and Jimmy Graham is 19%. And then the running backs. David Montgomery did play 84% of the snaps here. Damien Williams got 11%. Khalil Herbert got 8%. So I think at this point, again, Montgomery, he's getting the volume, he's getting the snaps. Just continue to go with Montgomery, and I think I'm going to stay away from this Bears offense. But it took a while for the Packers to get into this one here, but they had that big second and third quarter to ice it away. We'll move on to Seattle and Houston. Seattle 33, Houston 13. The Texans fall to 2-11. Seattle moves to 5-8 to stay alive into the playoffs here. I guess we'll start with the snap counts in this one. Tyler Lockett led the receivers with 75%. DK Metcalf played 74%. After that, you got a kind of a mix here for wide receiver 3. Dwayne Eskridge, the rookie, 46% of the snaps. Freddie Swain got 44%. At tight end, you see Will Dissly outsnapped Gerald Everett. In the past, it has been Gerald Everett, but this week, Will Dissly gets 69%, Everett gets 62%. And then the running backs, Rashad Penny, man, had a game, 57% of the snaps for him. Alex Collins, who was supposed to be the starter, just 23% of the snaps for him. And DJ Dallas, 18% of the snaps there. On the Texans side, Davis Mills played well. Like the box score will look nice. He did play the full game here. Brandon Cooks got 81%. Nico Collins got 70%. The other wide receivers we really don't need to mention. But Royce Freeman led the team in running back snaps on the day with 54%. Rex Burkhead got hurt in this one. He played 44%. They only had 2 running backs get snaps in this one. And then the tight ends, I guess, Pharaoh Brown, 64%. But this Brevan Jordan, the rookie here, with 36% of the snaps. Let's go take a peek at his box score. I guess we'll get to Brevan in a second. Davis Mills, though, 33 of 49. That's a lot of pass attempts for Davis Mills. 331 passing yards, 1 passing touchdown. He was sacked twice, but no turnovers on the day. 8 rushing yards, 2. Rex Burkhead, 11 for 40 as a rusher, 4 for 26 as a receiver. Big game from Royce Freeman, 11 of 15 on the ground only, but 8 targets, 6 for 51 as a receiver. So Royce Freeman, interesting in PPR formats with if Rex Burkhead's out for a while, as well as David Johnson. Brandon Cooks led the team in targets on the day with 11. 8 for 101 yards. Nico Collins, 10 targets, 5 for 69. He's an interesting rookie for the future. Really need an upgrade at quarterback, but I liked what I saw from Nico. And then Brevan Jordan, 7 targets, 4 for 26 and a score. Don't really want to mention anything else here. On the Seahawks side, Russell Wilson, he did enough, 17 of 28, 260 yards, 2 passing touchdowns, no turnovers, no sacks on the day either. But this was all about Rashad Penny. 16 rushing attempts, 137 yards for 2 touchdowns. He had a 1-yard catch as well here, but Rashad Penny looks like the back to own going forward for Seattle. Alex Collins, 7 for 16, 1 catch for 1 yard. DJ Dallas got 2 for 16 as a rusher, but no receiving volume. And then Everett, a 13-yard carry, 2 for 15 and a score. Freddie Swain got into the rushing column here. He had 1 target, no catches. But Tyler Lockett, man, had the biggest day of the receiving group. 9 targets, 5 for 142 yards and a score. Rough day for Metcalf, only 8. Well, 8 targets is nice, but only 4 for 43 as a receiver. I believe he had a touchdown call back in this one. Will Dissly, 2 for 38. Penny Hart, Nick Bellore, kind of Dwayne Eskridge, whatever at the moment. But Seattle keeps their hopes alive. We know Houston's not going anywhere. They're fighting for the number 1 pick with Detroit. We'll see what happens there. But Seattle keeps it moving, keeps their playoff hopes alive. Let's move on to kind of a laugher of a game here. The Chiefs and the Raiders, 48-9. Kansas City goes to 9-4. The Raiders fall to 6-7. Let's take a peek at these snap counts real quick. Pat Mahomes didn't play a full game. He only played 94%. Travis Kelce led the team in snaps on the day for skill positions with 74%. And then you have 5 wide receivers just all getting in the rotation here. Tyreek Hill only played 67% of this game. Byron Pringle was the wide receiver 2 at 61%. So that's kind of notable for me. But Demarcus Robinson, 45%. Josh Gordon, 36%. And Mecole Hardman's not even like in the top 3 or 4 now. He's wide receiver 5 on the day with 35%. Running backs, Daryl Williams and Clyde Edwards-Helaire were on the field the same amount, both at 35%. But I really don't know how much we can learn from this one. This game was done before halftime here. I think it was 35-0. So everybody got in. Everybody got, if you were running back, you got a touchdown. Everybody kind of just got in and did their work. For the Raiders here, it was ugly. Foster Moreau gets the start at tight end. He led the way at 98%, and then you have a couple of receivers here. Hunter Renfrow is fantastic. He had 94% of the snaps. Zay Jones was wide receiver 2 at 84%. Bryan Edwards losing a little bit of steam here to Zay Jones and Hunter Renfrow. Edwards only 62% of the snaps. Deshaun Jackson got 51%. As far as running backs go, Josh Jacobs looking really good here. Again, no Kenyon Drake for the rest of the season. Josh Jacobs played 75% here, and then a couple backup running backs. Trey Ragas, 14%, Peyton Barber, 11%. Nothing really to monitor behind Jacobs. But let's take a peek at these box scores, starting with the Raiders. 33 of 45 for Derek Carr, 263 yards, 1 touchdown, 1 interception. He was sacked 4 times, and he did lose a fumble, so not the best effort from Carr. Josh Jacobs, 9 for 24 as a rusher, but he's been heavily involved as a receiver this year. 6 targets, 5 for 46. He also lost a fumble. I think it was the first score of the game he fumbled. Chiefs took it back to the house. Trey Ragas, 1 for 9 as a rusher, 2 for 6 as a receiver, whatever. Peyton Barber, 1 for 7 as a rusher, 2 for 13 as a receiver. Don't know who Dallin Leavitt is. That might have been a fake punt or something. But Hunter Renfrow, he was really the only guy that gave a damn on Sunday here. 14 targets, 13 receptions for 117 yards and 1 touchdown. He did lose a fumble in this one here, but if you started Hunter Renfrow, you are feeling ecstatic about his final stat line. Zay Jones, 5 for 25 on 7 targets. He did lose a fumble as well. 4 fumbles in the game here from the Raiders. Just nobody was on their game. 2 for 24, Bryan Edwards. Sean Jackson, 1 for 19. Foster Moreau is just not happening. 6 targets, 3 for 13. So frustrating day all around for the Raiders. Pat Mahomes he's just playing with them. 20 of 24, 258 yards, 2 touchdowns, no turnovers. He added 20 yards rushing, and he was sacked thrice. Derek Gore, 9 for 66 and a touchdown, a 51-yard touchdown at that. 2 for 23 as a receiver. Clyde Edwards-Helaire led the team in carries, 10 for 37 and 2 rushing touchdowns. He caught all 3 of his targets for just 5 yards. I wish there was more in the receiving column for him. He needs to be better in that area. But Daryl Williams, 2 of 8 on the ground. But Daryl Williams is probably the better receiving back between the two at the moment right now. 3 targets, 3 catches, 31 yards, and a score. Again, all 3 running backs score here. Michael Burton got in some fun. Tyreek Hill led the team in receiving yards on the day. 4 targets, 4 receptions for 76 yards. Mecole Hardman had a nice big play, 2 for 59. Byron Pringle, 1 for 28. Travis Kelce, 3 for 27. Not the best. Hopefully he can get things turned around against the Chargers on Thursday Night Football. And then Josh Gordon getting into the touchdown here with 2 for 9 and a score. Just everybody touched the ball. Everybody kind of did something in this game. It was just a feel-good, get-right game for the Chiefs, whereas the Raiders, Again, kind of swirling down the toilet right now. 6-7 on the outside looking into the playoffs. Tough schedule the rest of the way. We'll see if the Raiders can rebound. The Saints and the Jets. The Saints win 30-9. Saints staying in the NFC hunt here at 6-7. Jets 3-10 again. They're kind of joining the rest of the teams going down the toilet here. We'll look at the box scores. We have Taysom Hill, a better day as a passer, 15 of 21. Only 175 yards though, but again, he didn't turn the ball over. He did have 2 fumbles, but he didn't lose the fumbles. He was sacked 3 times, but the rushing column, 11 for 73 and 2 rushing touchdowns, including a 44-yard touchdown there late in the fourth quarter. Otherwise, it was just the Alvin Kamara show. 27 carries, 120 rushing yards, and 1 touchdown. He also had 5 targets, 4 for 25 as a receiver. Tony Jones was the backup, 6 for 10 as a rusher, 1 for 19 as a receiver, whatever. But Nick Vannett, tight end, leading the team in targets with 6. He goes 3 for 44 as the team's leading receiver. Marquez Callaway, 2 for 34. Traquan Smith, 3 for 33. We really cannot start any Saints passing weapon outside of Alvin Kamara. Stick to Taysom Hill and kind of just keep it at that. That's what this offense is good at for fantasy. On the Jets side, rough day from Zach Wilson, 19 of 42 as a passer, 202 yards. He didn't turn the ball over, so that's a positive, but he was sacked 3 times. But at least he added 33 yards rushing on the ground. Nobody's starting Zach Wilson outside of like deep super flex league, so we'll kind of just glaze over that. Lamar Perein, 7 for 28 to lead the team in rushing. Ty Johnson, 6 for 17. He also had 7 targets, 4 for 40. So in a PPR league, whatever, 9-point-something points, I suppose, or is that 8.7, something like that? That's fine. Braxton Berrios led the team in targets with 10, 6 for 52. And then nothing else on this team, man. I don't even know who DJ Montgomery is, but 3 for 36. Ryan Griffin, 2 for 28. Keelan Cole, 1 for 27. Jamison Crowder, 3 for 19. So not looking good for the Jets. They've seen better days. No Corey Davis, no Michael Carter, no Elijah Moore. The season is pretty much in the bag here for the Jets. They just got to keep Zach Wilson healthy and continuing to put more film on for the offseason here. We'll move on to Jacksonville, Tennessee. Not much of a game here. Titans move to 9-4. Jacksonville falls to 2-11. Titans win 20-0. Just a stinker of a game here. We'll look at the snap counts here. I might have missed the snap counts for the Saints game, so my apologies. Ryan Tannehill only needed 96% of the game here. Jeff Swaim led the team in snaps here at 76%. The other tight ends, Michael Pruitt, 46%. Anthony Firkser, 42%. Receivers, Nick Westbrook-Ikhine, 73% to lead the receivers. Cody Hollister was number 2 at 61%. And Julio Jones, third receiver at 45%. So hopefully he can start to ramp up that number. The running backs was just another mess here. They're going to use 3 running backs. McNichols, 38%. He actually led the team in snaps. Dontrell Hilliard, 34%. And Deonta Foreman, 32% of the snaps. Looking at the Jags side real quick, ugly game from Trevor Lawrence, but Marvin Jones, 98%, Laviska Shenault, 82%, and Laquan Treadwell, 80% of the snaps. James O'Shaughnessy played 73% to lead all tight ends, and then James Robinson, only 64% for him. Carlos Hyde did get 22%. Let's take a peek at some of these ugly numbers here. On the Jag side, Trevor Lawrence, 24 of 40, 221 passing yards, no touchdowns, 2 yards rushing, but 4 interceptions and 3 sacks. I know a couple of the interceptions came off of other receivers' hands, but still not a great output here. Shouldn't be using him in 1 QB leagues, maybe not even in Superflex leagues going forward. James Robinson, 6 for 4 on the ground, no targets in the passing game. Like, I'm just scratching my head here. I honestly don't think we can rely on any Jags for our fantasy playoffs going forward. Carlos Hyde, whatever, 2 yards on the ground, 6 yards as a receiver. Marvin Jones played well, 6 for 70 through the air. Laquan Treadwell, 4 for 68. Nice to see him playing well. But Laviska Shenault, 4 for 34. It's just not going to happen this year. Still no touchdowns on the season. But James O'Shaughnessy, 6 targets, 4 for 21. It's just an abyss for fantasy football here. I think Marvin Jones maybe is a thinker, but for the most part, I'm trying to avoid garbage teams in my fantasy playoffs. Ryan Tannehill, 20 of 31, kind of a fine day here, 191 yards passing, no passing touchdowns, but he gets 29 yards rushing and adds a touchdown there. He was sacked 4 times. If you started him for fantasy, it was fine. It's a floor game. Deonta Foreman led the team in carries, 13 for 47, 1 rushing touchdown, 2 for 15 as a receiver. We see Jeremy McNichols get in here, 8 for 16 as a rusher, 1 target, no catches. And then you have Dontrell Hilliard, 6 for 13 as a rusher, 2 targets, 0 receptions. So I think going forward, only Deonta Foreman's the guy I would be trusting as a low-end running back too. As far as receivers go, Jeff Swain led the way, 4 targets, 3 for 45. Anthony Ferkser, 5 targets, 4 for 34. Julio Jones, 6 targets, a team high 6 targets, which is nice, 4 for 33. And again, he only played on 45% of the snaps, so that's a good number from Julio Jones. Hopefully he can ramp that up and get some bigger box score numbers here. But I really don't even want to mess with some of these other guys here. But Tennessee remains ugly for fantasy. Tannehill is a fringe quarterback start, Deonta Foreman, a fringe running back 2 start, and we'll see about Julio Jones this week. But overall, ugly game. We'll just kind of move on to the next one here. The Giants and the Chargers. Chargers rolled 37-21, moved to 8-5. Giants fall to 4-9. Let's take a peek at these snap counts here. We'll move it on down. On the Chargers side, Herbert only needed to play 93% of this game. Wide receivers at the top here, Josh Palmer led the way, 87% of the snaps for him. Mike Williams at 83%. Jalen Guyton, 59%. So I thought it was interesting. Guyton was not the next man up behind Keenan Allen. It was actually Josh Palmer dominating 87% of the snaps compared to Guyton's 59%. So that was an eyebrow for me. At tight end, you see Trey McKitty lead the team in tight end snaps at 46%, Jared Cook 44%, Donald Parham 41%. Running backs, Austin Eckler left the game with an ankle injury. It's not serious, it sounds like. He has a chance to play on Thursday Night Football. 46% for him. Justin Jackson 28%, Josh Kelly 27%. If Eckler can't go, we're going to see a committee of JJ and Josh Kelly. On the Giants side, real quick here, Glennon played the full game at receiver. Kenny Golladay led the team with 88% of the snaps. Sterling Shepard, wide receiver 2, at 81%. Darius Slayton, 67%. For tight ends, Evan Ingram continues to play a lot, 74%, just no box score stuff to show. And then Saquon Barkley, 55% of the snaps here. They used Devontae Booker a lot today or yesterday, 41% of the snaps for him. Let's go look at the numbers. For Mike Glennon, 17 of 36 as a passer, 191 passing yards. He did throw for 2 touchdowns, and he had a 7-yard touchdown run late in that game. So he accumulated 3 touchdowns, but he did have an interception, and he did have a fumble in this one. Riley Dixon, the punter, attempted a pass. But Saquon Barkley, 16 carries, 64 yards. That's fine. We'll take that. That's 4 yards a pop there. And then 3 targets, 3 catches, 31 yards, and a really nice receiving touchdown. So he had probably one of his better days of the year with Mike Glennon at QB. Devontae Booker got a lot of volume in this one, 8 for 56 as a rusher, 4 for 28 as a receiver. So he remains a handcuff worth holding on to in case anything happens to Saquon. Elijah Penny catches a 3-yard touchdown. Kyle Rudolph led the team in receiving. That goes to show how the day went here. 2 for 66. He had a 60-yard catch. And then after that, it's nothing. Sterling Shepard, 2 for 27. Kenny Golladay, 2 for 15. And he led the team with 8 targets and ends up with 2 for 15. Evan Ingram, 4 targets, 1 for 8. John Ross, all these other guys kind of on the bench here. Just nothing really happening for this Giants offense. If you have Giants questions, let me know in the comments. We'll try and sort this out. But again, going forward, we're in fantasy playoffs now, heading to week 15. Probably trying to avoid teams like the Giants and the Jags and some of these other bottom feeders. But Justin Herbert, beautiful day, 23 of 31, 275 passing yards, 3 touchdowns, no turnovers in this one. He was sacked twice, and he also added 19 yards on the ground. Austin Eckler, before he left with injury, 12 of 67 on the ground. 1 rushing touchdown. He did catch 2 of his 4 targets for 17 yards. So Eckler floor game at this point. It was not his best game, but again, he left early in the 3rd quarter. Justin Jackson, 9 for 35 as a rusher, 1 for 7 as a receiver. Josh Kelly, 10 for 33, and 1 for 5 as a receiver. So you're going to see these 2 guys. If Eckler can't go Thursday Night Football, you're going to see a committee between these 2. But Jalen Guyton on the day, 3 targets, 3 catches, 87 yards, and a nice score here for 59 yards. Josh Palmer was the busiest receiver on the day with 7 targets, 5 for 66, and a score. Mike Williams, just a fine day here, a floor game, 6 for 6 and 61 yards. You'll take that 12 points in PPR league, I believe. And then nothing really else happening here on the bench from Parham, Steven Anderson, Jared Cook catches a touchdown. Not a big fantasy day, I suppose. If you started Cook, you're fine with your 9.8 points. And then Chase Daniel knelt it out there. So the Chargers keep it moving, and they're looking pretty good for the playoffs right now. This was probably one of the more exciting games of the day. The Buccaneers hosting the Bills. Tampa wins in overtime, 33-27. Bucks move to 10-3. The Bills fall to 7-6, right on the playoff edge right now, just hanging in there right now. They do have a favorable schedule coming up, but they need to start stringing together some good performances. This was all Josh Allen on the Bills side, 36 of 54. 308 passing yards, 2 passing touchdowns, 1 interception. He was sacked 3 times, but he did add 12 attempts for 109 rushing yards and a touchdown. So if you started Josh Allen, you had a really nice day on the ground. Devin Singletary led the team in rushing, 4 for 52. 7 targets, 6 for 37. So Singletary at the moment right now looks like the lead back here. No sign of Zach Moss. Matt Breida's getting back into the background again here. 3 for 12 as a rusher, 1 target, no catches. So Singletary, I'm intrigued with. Stephon Diggs led the team in targets with 13, 7 for 74, no touchdowns, but you'll take the floor. Cole Beasley, people know now that when the Bills are facing a heavy zone team, Cole Beasley's going to be busy. 11 targets, 9 for 64. That's a good PPR day. Dawson Knox had himself a game, 9 targets, 7 receptions, 60 yards, and a score. And then Gabe Davis, Emmanuel Sanders got hurt, left this game early, 8 targets, 5 for 43, and another touchdown for Gabe. Sanders, before he left, 1 for 25. Isaiah McKenzie, 1 for 5. And then Tom Brady, the Buccaneers here, 31 of 46 passing for Tom, 363 passing yards, 2 passing touchdowns, no turnovers. He was sacked twice. And then he had 7 rushing attempts for 16 yards and a touchdown. Tom Brady was moving on Sunday here. Leonard Fournette dominated the backfield, 19 attempts for 113 yards, 1 rushing touchdown. The Buffalo Bills rush defense continues to be an issue for them. 7 targets for Fournette, 4 for 19 as a receiver. Ronald Jones got in for 3 carries, 8 yards, no targets. He just played a little bit. But Chris Godwin continues to dominate in this one. 15 targets, 10 receptions for 105 yards. Mike Evans, 6 for 6. 91 yards and a touchdown. Rob Gronkowski, no touchdown, but you'll take the floor here. 9 targets, 5 for 62. Rashad Perriman, the walk-off touchdown, 1 for 58 and a score. And then Ty Johnson, Cameron Brate just kind of filling out the box score there at the end. Snap counts, Chris Godwin led the way for the Tampa Bay Bucks, 94% at receiver. Mike Evans, wide receiver 2 at 93%. After that, Tyler Johnson was number 3 at 59%. Rashad Perriman did play 31% here. Tight ends, Rob Gronkowski dominated it for 88% of the share. Cameron Brate did play 25. O.J. Howard just down to 6. At running back, Leonard Fournette continues to dominate this. 80% of the snaps here. Ronald Jones got 10%, and Gio Bernard got 8%. Bernard did leave the game with a hip injury. Not sure the severity of it now, but Ronald Jones should be a handcuff worth picking up for the playoff run in case anything happens to Fournette. On the Bills side, Dawson Knox led the way, 96% of the snaps. Stephon Diggs gets 88%. Gabe Davis was wide receiver 2 on the day with 83%. Cole Beasley played 81%. And then Emmanuel Sanders, before he left, he played 32%. McKenzie gets 14%. Jake Kumaro, 6%, kind of whatever. But interesting, Gabe Davis is heating up. Again, he was the number 2 receiver in snaps here. And Cole Beasley, anytime they play a zone-heavy defense, he's going to have a nice game. Devin Singletary completely took over this backfield in week 14, 82% of the snaps for him. Matt Breida only playing 14% of the snaps. So interesting game. We know what these two offenses can do for fantasy. I think there's no surprises this week, but we have to monitor this Emmanuel Sanders injury here. I do like Gabriel Davis as an ad potentially for week 15, as I can't remember who the Bills play. But I thought it was a winnable game. I can't remember who it is. But we'll move on here to our final game. Thanks for hanging out with us tonight. If you guys made it to the end, let me know in the comments what you're thinking of these snap count videos. I know it takes a long time, but for me, it's one of my favorite videos to put out. I learn a lot while doing it, and then I even go back and listen to it myself just because there's a lot of useful numbers and information here. But our last game of the day, Cowboys beat the football team 27-20. Cowboys moved to 9-4. Football team falls to 6-7, but they're clinging on to that final 7th seed in the NFC. On the Cowboys side, you see Amari Cooper lead the way, 88% of the snaps here. Wide receiver 2 was Michael Gallup at 82%. And CeeDee Lamb, only 67% of the snaps here. I can't remember if he got hurt or dinged up in this one. Cedric Wilson, Malik Turner just kind of down here. But good sign for Gallup to be up here at 82%. CeeDee Lamb will look for that number to improve next week. Ezekiel Elliott, again, with no Tony Pollard, you see Ezekiel Elliott only 64% of the snaps. So it wasn't more for him. It was more for Corey Clement, who got 36%. Dalton Schultz, 85% to lead the tight ends. Jeremy Sprinkle was tight end number 2 at 27%. So Cowboys, pretty status quo here. Nothing that surprised me. Besides the CeeDee Lamb, a little bit there. On the football team side, John Bates is the tight end here. 71% for John Bates. Ricky Seals-Jones only 46%. So I don't know if I even want to mess with Ricky Seals-Jones. I think John Bates is probably the tight end for the rest of the season here. Hard to trust, though. He's a rookie. Taylor Heineke was just beat up in this one. 71% of the snaps for him. Kyle Allen did play 29%. For running backs, Antonio Gibson led the day with 68%. The other backs getting touches, Jarrett Patterson at 18%, and Jonathan Williams, 15% for him. Gibson got benched in this one late in the third quarter after another costly fumble. For receivers, Adam Humphries led the way at 62%, DeAndre Carter 59%, Cam Sims 59%, so they tied for number 2. And McLaurin got concussed in this one. He was knocked out early, 49% for him. So frustrating day for the football team. We'll see what happens with the receivers, Terry McLaurin. We're waiting to see what happens with J.D. McKissick as he returns from his concussion as well. But the football team, I guess Taylor Heineke too, he got beaten up and pushed out of this game. But we're waiting to see some injury reports for the week heading into week 15. But for the box scores, Heineke 11 for 25 as a passer, only 122 passing yards. He did get a touchdown late, 1 interception. He also lost a fumble, 8 rushing yards. But he was sacked 4 times in this one. It was just a mess from the beginning. Kyle Allen, 4 of 9 passing, 53 yards. He was sacked once, added 11 yards on the ground, and he lost a fumble as well. Antonio Gibson led the team in rushing, 10 for 36. Only 2 for 5 as a receiver, but he did lose a costly fumble. Jarrett Patterson, 4 for 29 on the ground and 1 for 9 as a receiver. And then Jonathan Williams came in the fourth quarter, 4 for 16 as a rusher, 1 rushing touchdown, 1 for 19 as a receiver. Cam Sims led the team in yards on the day, 4 total targets, 3 for 69 and a sick touchdown grab. Adam Humphries led the team in targets, 7 targets, 4 for 34. John Bates, 1 for 19. DeAndre Carter, 2 for 12. Ricky Seals-Jones, 1 for 8. Curtis Samuel, nothing, 2 targets, no catches. Terry McLaurin, 4 targets, no catches. Just ugly. Football team is going to be heading to Philadelphia next week to try and get their playoff spot locked up. But they're dinged up, not looking good. We'll see. We'll have to watch the health reports for them this week. And then the Cowboys offense here. They really struggled on offense, actually. It was the defense that won this game. But Dak, 22 of 39 passing, 211 yards, 1 touchdown, 2 interceptions. He was sacked 4 times and added 15 yards rushing. Ezekiel Elliott, 12 for 45 as a rusher, 6 targets, but only 1 for 15 as a receiver. That's a bad ratio for receptions to targets. Corey Clement, 13 for 44 as the Tony Pollard replacement, 1 for 2 as a receiver. You see CeeDee Lamb, 2 for 15 as a rusher, 10 targets, 7 for 61. So he did lead the team in targets. He just was the third guy in the snaps. Michael Gallup, 9 targets, 5 for 60. Amari Cooper, 7 targets, 5 for 51 and a score. Cedric Wilson, Dalton Schultz. Dalton Schultz kind of fallen out of favor here. 3 targets, 1 for 4. I think for Dallas, you're going to continue to start the top 3 receivers. I think Gallup's looking pretty good here. He has a nice floor of about 10, 11 points in PPR leagues. And then, of course, Cooper, Lamb, you're starting those guys. And I think Ezekiel Elliott's got to continue to stay in your lineups. But this was a tough game for the Dallas offense. That football team defense is still pretty good, but that's going to do it for week 14, the snap counts and the box scores. So thank you for hanging out with me tonight. If you liked this video, don't forget, it really helps the algorithm to hit like on this YouTube video, share it with a friend, comment below. That helps the YouTube channel grow, and subscribe if you are new, of course. So thank you so much for your time. We'll see you guys in some of the live streams later this week. Good luck. I hope you make the playoffs and enjoy the Monday Night Football game. Thanks. Peace.